fact, may I then rewind myself a bit? And this is what I wanted to do. Can I request that all of us clap to welcome Pumzili here? Thank you. I'd also like to welcome many of you who have adjusted your diaries specially to be here today to participate in this conclave because the subject is dear to many of you. Very briefly about Pumzili, I have a document here which runs into pages, but it's a typical case, where do I start, where do I end? She's special. As a youngster, she was blessed. Her mother was a community worker. Her father was a school teacher. And those qualities is what she picked up, the sensitivity to humanity. Pumzili, at a very young age, in early 20s, she looks very cool and calm here, but she was an activist. She backed an organization called Now. Now. We want liberation now. We want freedom now. And the beauty is that she went around the country pulling people out of the mainstream to participate in the freedom struggle. And that had to do with saying, but listen, before liberation comes education. So that is Pumzili, a minister at a very young age. Mr. Mandela had her in the cabinet. She was Minister for Minerals, Mr. Becky's time. She revamped the minerals whole system, bringing in the underprivileged in the shareholding there, social development around the mines, Deputy President of South Africa in 2005 till 2008, and now the Under-Secretary General of the UN. You know, today, if I might say, Madam, that there is a meeting of rivers in India which is called Sangam. And these are three rivers which meet. It is the UN philosophy, the IMC philosophy, and your philosophy. And what is this philosophy? This philosophy recognizes the power of women. You have a program, Weunite, and which addresses gender equality, which addresses violence against women. And both these are integral part, has been integral part of your life, and you at the UN heralding this. And at IMC, which is a 110-year-old chamber, we have a ladies' wing which was established 50 years ago. So that was the foresight of some of the members here. But more than that is our philosophy that what women can contribute. Our vision is to enhance India's competitiveness globally. But if our GDP has to grow, it has to do with your platform to gender. And Weunite, as I said, has to do with, and these sites are, we are also setting up a broad partnership with the UN to address skills of women. This is a secret that I know. You know, she was a young activist traveling from Durban to Johannesburg, and there was this charming lawyer. Can you imagine, in a 1-hour flight?
Thank you, Mr. Prem Narayan. Ms. Radhika Nath of the Mahindra Group is one of the stalwarts of the IMC Ladies Wing. She has been associated with the Chamber for several years and is doing an excellent job in her current role as President of the Ladies Wing. I'd like to invite Ms. Radhika Nath to say a few words.
In their own right. We not only seek to fulfill ourselves as homemakers, but we also look to pursue personal aspirations as our careers take center stage. Women everywhere are breaking glass ceilings. We serve as our own role models, seeking greater inclusion in all fronts. Today, we get to define who we are. But our work isn't done. In fact, it is only just starting. Despite our tremendous advances, women perform 66% of the world's work and produce 50% of the food, yet earn only 10% of their income and own a mere 1% of the property. Whether the issue is improving education in the developing world, or fighting global climate change, or addressing nearly any other challenge we face, empowering women is a critical part of the equation. The ladies' wing of the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry started as a forum for implementing social change as far back as 1966. Today, 5 decades later, in its 50th year, it has become a dynamic movement for the empowerment of Indian women. Through the year, the wing hosts a variety of lecture series and workshops, delegations and panel discussions, calibrated to showcase the work of women from fields as diverse as sport and media, IT and rural development, politics and law. Our annual award series, in turn, seeks to recognize and further felicitate their work. We strive to help them in their efforts to improve and develop society and lead it toward a more progressive, inclusive path. A good example is our integrated intervention plan to lift the socio-economic conditions of the over 400-strong tribal community living in Gadeshwar, a tribal hamlet in the state of Maharashtra. As a direct result of the wing's efforts, Gadeshwar is now dotted with 75 toilets, a crucial initiative to improve the hygiene and, in turn, the mortality rates of the entire community. A community hall has also been constructed as a space for the village women to conduct small-scale vocational skill development programs. The ladies' wing has also taken the responsibility of ameliorating the Nagpada Police Hospital canteen. The hospital canteen was defunct and in a totally dilapidated state. It is now completely refurbished, renovated, and is fully equipped with the latest appliances. More to it, we have seen that the canteen is operated by the wives of the policemen in an effort to make them economically self-reliant. These are just 2 small examples of the impact the ladies' wing seeks to have, to nurture the development of an egalitarian, inclusive society for a rapidly growing India. We at the wing are a true reflection of the changing status quo for women and their role in the world. To quote Gandhi, we aim to be the change we would like to see in this world.
Thank you, Ms. Nath. Our chief guest, Madame Phumzile, has taken the time from her very hectic schedule to be with us today. To formally welcome her, I'd like to request Mr. Deepak Prem Narayan and Ms. Radhika Nath to jointly present a small memento to her as a token of our appreciation. I'm sure we can do better than that. There you go. It is an absolute honor to have Madame Phumzile here. A longtime champion of women's rights and gender equality, she has been doing outstanding work since she took over as the Executive Director of UN Women. I know you all are waiting to...
So, want to thank all the participants and guests who are here, including representatives of the UN family. Our resident coordinator is also here with us. Thank you so much for being here as always. And of course, I also want to thank the sponsors who has enabled us to meet like this today, the IMC leadership and the broader family of the IMC for embracing the cause for UN women. And I think you're going to find it very hard to get rid of us from now onwards. So the feeling is mutual. As UN Women, we are happy to be co-hosting this event with an organization that improves trade, commerce, and sustainable growth in India, and is concerned with investing in gender equality. Most of the time, when I have been here in India, especially when I was with the South African government, working with business, it was about investment. It was about trade. It was about collaboration of our industries in both countries. It was about looking for opportunities for women in the private sector and in the economy in general. But today, we are gathered here for a different reason. We are gathered here to share our ideas on the critical link between women's economic empowerment, ending violence against women, and the importance of investing in the different activities aimed at ending gender-based violence. It is a very sobering topic, and I want to thank you for being here in your numbers. The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, McKinsey are amongst the institutions that have produced studies that show that violence against women has a significant impact in economic activity. But first, violence against women is unacceptable because it is a violation of rights of women and girls. Violence against women is a challenge in every part of the world. It is a universal challenge that many, and in fact all countries, are grappling with. The cost of violence against women could amount to around 2% of the global domestic product, according to McKinsey, and this is equated to an equivalent of 1.5 trillion US dollars approximately. In addition, there's a negative effect of sexual harassment at work, chronic failure of law enforcement to act effectively on violent crimes that are committed against women at home and in public, the violence that is also committed against girls, which include child marriages, and the violence that is committed against young women on university campuses. The cost of this crime has led many countries to seek for international and collaborative mechanisms to address this, both as a human rights violation, but also as a challenge that has a big effect on the capacity of economies to grow. The impacts on the economies includes loss of wages for women, loss of time for productivity, loss of self-esteem amongst women, medical challenges that women face, the fact that governments have to invest in law enforcement both to protect and to prosecute, and the list goes on. So as we gather here, I'd like to acknowledge with appreciation yourselves as members of the business community for significant strides that you have been taking in empowering women in the workplace, in the communities, and as active participants in building the Indian community. Your work, especially when it is directed to addressing the issues we're concerned about, helps to prevent, reduce violence against women, as well as to provide relief and support for women and children who are affected. To end violence against women requires key institutions in society to work together, to provide services, as well as to ensure that the different bodies in society, especially those that are responsible for law enforcement, are held accountable. But more than anything else, your being here is important to give victims of violence against women voice. There are, for instance, in the world, 1 out of 3 women who live with violence in their lives. This equals to about 30% of all women in the world. The 3 themes of this conference, therefore, are important: women's economic empowerment, ending violence against women, and the need for urgent and adequate investment are all interlinked and require some involvement of the private sector. These 3 areas also are themes that are of high importance to the government of India. The progress in these areas is crucial to ensure that women and girls thrive in a free world where they can be safe in public space, at work, at home, at school, in universities. This conference happens during the 16 Days of Activism, a campaign that aims to galvanize action to end gender-based violence around the world. As we speak, almost in every corner of the world, people are having similar discussion. They are also discussing both strategies as well as sharing ideas on the different initiatives that they have taken. The color orange that you see dominant today is the color of the campaign. It is the color that was adopted in order for us to give a shine on this issue, to project a brighter future for girls, a brighter future that is also warm, which the orange color captures. From to November 25th to the 10th of December, different iconic buildings of the world, including, as you have heard here in India, will be lit orange. The idea is to spark a conversation amongst people who watch that color and ask questions. Why is this building orange today? And our duty is to engage people and give them ideas about what they could do to address the issue of ending violence against women. In 2015, the world adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 of them. And many people felt this was a long list, especially because the Millennium Development Goals were only 8. But it was important that the United Nations and the member states adopt a comprehensive program in order to address the complex problems of the world. Violence against women, gender equality is right at the center of these goals as adopted. The 17 goals are universal. They address issues that concern all countries, unlike the Millennium Development Goals, which were more about the development of developing countries. The Sustainable Development Goals about the development of the world, the rich and the poor, East and West. If you look at the development goals and you group them, they are about people and leaving no one behind. They therefore address the issue, the plight of girls, of women, of child laborers, of people that live in the inner cities, of older people who may be neglected, and of disabled people. The Sustainable Development Goals also are about prosperity. Prosperity that is shared within nations and between nations, and women's economic empowerment is at the heart of this focus area of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals are also about protecting the planet, ensuring that we usher a low-carbon economy. The Sustainable Development Goals also are about peace, preventing conflict and protecting peace. They are also about partnerships between different stakeholders, and sitting here are partners that are trying to advance the cause of the Sustainable Development Goals. In each of these goals, there are significant interests for women, and in each of these goals, if we address adequately the issues that are meant to address, it has a direct impact on reducing violence against women. Let me give you the example of the goals. There's a goal on ending poverty in all its forms and everywhere. As you know, the poorer the women are, the more she is in danger to be exposed to violence and to have no mechanism to run away from the violence. The Sustainable Development Goals also include healthy lifestyles. They include inclusive quality education and promotion of lifelong learning. They include a special and a specific goal on gender equality. They include ensuring access to water and sanitation, include ensuring access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable modern energy, the building of resilient infrastructures, inclusive cities, ensuring that there's targeted action to combat climate change, and they include also partnerships. Again, looking at all of these goals and the ones that I have not mentioned, you can see how they are critical for private sector to embrace, because as you implement these goals, they will also be a mechanism to address gender-based violence. We are now 2 years almost after these goals were implemented, and what we are trying to do here is to position women better in the implementation of those goals. We are targeting different critical role players and stakeholders who can make a difference. Last year, the Secretary General commissioned a report on women's economic empowerment. He wanted us to look at interventions that can be made in the arena of women's economic empowerment that would impact on the largest number of women who are on the wrong side of the economic divide. The report has identified women in the informal sector as critical people who may be left behind. In the identification of the informal sector, report highlights the importance of having policy that can provide social protection for women in the informal sector. It highlights the fact that many countries do not have in their labor laws protection as well as benefits for women in the informal sector. The fact that many women in the informal sector do not have a privilege of having a maternity leave, and the fact that these are the women that sit at the buffer zone of society, preventing poverty from getting deeper and deeper. It calls for private sector and all of us to look at ways in which we could provide linkages between the informal sector and the formal sector in order to have a systemic and a progressive improvement of the quality of life of women in the in the informal sector. This is a critical sector. In India, 122 million women who work outside home work in the informal sector. So this is a sector that is too big to fail. It is our responsibility to do something about supporting this sector. And of course, you also have women who are in the paid informal sector, a more structured informal sector, such as domestic work, in the sense that they have employers. But again, when it is unregulated, women's wages plummet, and also women are exposed to violence by their employers, and the ILO has provided us with a convention that countries are expected to adopt and to ensure that they implement. In that way, we are able to have a predictable and a safer and a robust industry for women. In many countries where women are migrants also, they work in this sector. They send remittances at home, and through that, they are able to protect their families, to provide resources for healthcare, for shelter, and for school. Women also that were identified as critical by the report of the Secretary General are women who are at home, caught up in unpaid care work. These are the women who are likely to never work because of the significant work that they have to do at home, whose contribution is not accounted for, who also, and many of them are caught up in this situation at a very young age. In this report, the situation of these women is seen as critical to alleviate, because that would unleash more women for the labor market who can grow the economy and continuously reduce poverty, and in that situation also would empower women to be in a situation to defend themselves from gender-based violence. The women who are in unpaid care work in particular need affordable access to childcare. This one single thing, affordable access to childcare, would be a game changer for millions of women in the world. Just like a better arrangement for women in the informal sector would again be a game changer for millions of women in the world. And it is in this area where the brains, the generosity, and the initiatives of private sector could go a long way towards changing countries. And of course, we also have to focus on the industries and sectors where women are in the majority. In India, 75% of women in rural areas are agricultural workers. They only own 9% of the land. Again, both in legislation, in support intervention, it should be possible to empower those women and to change their lives sustainably, to take them out of poverty, but also to protect them from any form of violence that would come with the fact that even though they work hard, they still do not have significant economic power. India is not alone in this challenge. This is also a big challenge in Africa, and in a South-South context, it should be possible for countries to come together and to share expertise, share experiences, and turn the situation around. We have also seen the interventions of the Indian government to address the issue of violence against women. The Criminal Amendments Act of 2013 is an important act that needs to be supported so that implementation is effective. The Prevention of Sexual Harassment at the Workplace Act, another important act that needs to be supported so that implementation is effective. As we meet also here as business, we know that in many of our countries, business is led by men. So we're also looking for good men. While women are not dominant in the economy, we need the men that are leading private sector to stand up for gender equality. We want men like our host today, my brother and friend, Deepak, who are not ashamed and embarrassed to stand up and say, I'm a man and I'm a feminist and I care about gender equality. We have a campaign at UN Women exactly to motivate and to provide a platform for men like that to stand up. It is called He for She. He for She #1, who was the first one to sign, was none other than our General Secretary, Ban Ki-moon. But in this room, I see many Ban Ki-moons who I know are ready to sign up for He for She. As He for She, we expect you to make a commitment on the areas of gender inequality, including ending violence against women, that you will take action in, either in your company, in your community, or you will motivate and mobilize others to take action. In India, we see a country that has potential to raise the numbers in the world significantly. As we stand now, we have just reached over 1 million men in the world who have signed up for the campaign. We are looking for 1 billion men. So India, come on, this is your thing. I know India can play a significant role. Researchers in the US have estimated that a $1.6 billion investment in programs that sought to end violence against women results overall in savings of $14.8 billion. So we need you to also encourage investment in this area, because little investment creates big changes. This is one area where the rate of return is very high. And therefore, in your business, in your small and big way, please encourage participation, support, and investment for this agenda. I want to end by telling you that in India, there's more than 210,000 men who have registered for He for She. So I'm throwing this number at you with the hope that by the time we end this day, you would have sent a shout out to friends, to family, to ask them to register. You can just go to a He for She website, and in that site, you can register, and once you register, you increase the numbers. When you have taken a stand in your company, in your personal life, you will see that our world will be in a much better position to achieve on the Sustainable Development Goals, to decrease the pain that women are suffering, to ensure that the next generation will not experience the pain that the women are experiencing now. Because when children witness violence at home, they also grow up to be abusers, and women grow up to expect violence against them to be a norm. This generation has a unique opportunity to turn the tide. As we have adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, there are critical measures that when put together will be able to lead us to substantive equality. And we have a number of possibilities because India is one of the significant countries that has signed up to this. Together with the citizens of India, we have a possibility to be the first generation to attain substantive gender equality for India and for the world, just as we are the last generation with the possibility to turn the tide of climate change. It's a privilege to be in this generation, but if we do not step up to the challenge and make a difference, we risk betraying the cause that is in front of us, the cause that we are equal to achieve and to deliver on. Thank you.
And we also, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of all the heads of corporate and industry who are here today. Thank you all for being with us. I'm not going to name names because I will get into trouble for taking some names and leaving some out, but thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. Today is indeed a historic day as the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry and economic empowerment through skill building, promoting entrepreneurship and innovation, and creating violence-free dedication to her work and her charismatic screen presence have earned her the admiration of millions of filmgoers around the world. Forbes has listed her in their top 10 list of India's best known to visit stalls at Madame Tussauds in London. She has been nominated as one of the most beautiful women in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome the very gorgeous Katrina Kaif.
We as a world will strive to achieve by 2030. I was fortunate enough to play a small role in the announcement in India for the same, along with Akshay Kumar, A.R. Rahman, and Mrs. Tina Ambani. It is an ambitious proposal and a tough one to achieve in 14 years. But I do believe that we can achieve this if we all sincerely try together. I'm sure many of you are aware that India had a woman as her head of state way before the United Kingdom, a feature the United States of America has not managed to achieve as of yet. Which is why it is surprising to hear about gender inequality here in India, and yet sadly we do. On a daily basis, there are shocking stories in the media about violent crimes committed against women. Yet, I can only imagine how many more crimes there are against women in India that go unreported. This is not an India-specific issue, though. In the UN Secretary General's 2006 report on an in-depth study on all forms of violence against women, it was noted that there is no region of the world, no country, no culture in which women's freedom from violence has been secured. Here is another fact. In India, according to data provided by the National Crime Records Bureau, in the year 2001, the reported crimes against women were 1,43,795. In the year 2005, the reported crimes were 3,27,394, more than a 100% increase in numbers. However, I would like to believe that this increase in numbers is not an increase in crime against women. It is an increase in the number of women who are ready to come forward and report them. The world has largely been led by patriarchal societies, and women have, through the years, largely remained quiet in the face of atrocities rather than speak out against them. I know of educated women who remain silent in the face of violence because they are afraid to confront societal norms and have fingers pointed in their own direction. Especially when the majority of our society fails to recognize marital rape as a crime. I would urge more women to speak out. It is not okay to feel inferior or weak, because we are not the weaker sex by any stretch of imagination. We may be more emotional, but that is what makes us caregivers and mothers. If you ask each person sitting here today who is the strongest person that they know in their lives, I think the unanimous answer would most likely be that it is their mother, as it is in my case. My mother is by far the most amazing woman I have ever known. And as I stand here on this platform, if I do not act and merely speak, I would be doing my mother and every woman in the world a huge disservice. I would therefore like to pledge today that I will do whatever I can in my capacity to create awareness about gender equality. Thank you very much.
Katrina, thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to invite our sponsor for today's conference, Mr. Rizwan Adatia, to present a small memento to Katrina as a token of our appreciation for her being here today. changes, and we will also get men's viewpoint on perceived gender roles. May I request the panelists to come and take their seats on stage. Please welcome them with a huge round of applause as I call their Ms. Subhatani Vakal, founder trustee of the Vakal Ratna Foundation for Art. Mr. Aditya Gupta, co-founder of the NGO People for Parity. Dr. Ranjana Kumari, Director of the Swadesh Foundation. All right, before I call upon the moderator for the session, let me tell you a little bit about him.
Required, but anyway, as you were going, she said no to meeting her and he said no to. So I'll cancel it now.
When was that supposed to be?
Hey, bhai. After no, but she was walking out to meet you for 10 minutes in that other.
Wait, which are we meeting here?
Don't meet her. Let me find out again